Into the underworld. The opening of the cave in front of us is at least 2 stories high and around twice as wide, is the largest entrance of a huge and very complex cave system known as the Australasian Cave System. It extends for several miles underground and hosts one of the most peculiar ecosystems of the Australian Peninsula, a subcontinent formed by Australia, New Guinea, the Philippines, Malaysia and the South China Sea, and while a small central part of Australia remains relatively dry and open, with a mix of savanna and open woodlands, most of the subcontinent is covered by dense tropical rainforest. Is actually the acidity provided by the dead vegetation decomposing in the abundant rainfall that has carved the cave system on the calcareous rock that used to be part of the ocean's floor. The constant rain also helps fill the caves with nutrients from the outside world. Rivers charged with rotting leaves and debris flow inside every wet season. However, there is also another more passive nutrient source working year-round, the first creatures we see, bats. The caves host a plethora of flying mammals. Every night they abandon the gates of this underworld to forage for insects, like moths and flies, and come back to enrich the caves with their guano. Among the many species one calls our attention: the long-snouted striped bat, also known as indigo bangu. They are around the size of a rock dove, and are closely related with pollinating species. However, they represent a retrogression to the insectivorous roots of their very earliest ancestors. They, however, do not catch them mid-flight. Instead, they have adopted an almost completely mimicivorous diet, feeding mostly on termites and ants, as well as occasionally attacking the hives of wasps and bees. These bats are toothless and would struggle a lot trying to eat any insect larger than an apple seed. They, however, can be often found in large numbers raiding beehives, not for the insects themselves but to complement their diet with honey. For the same reason, they will also sometimes attack the nest of the Australian emerald wasp, another insect that convergently developed the capacity of producing a honey-like substance to feed their larvae. While both of them will try to deter the bats with hundreds of stings, their thick loose skin and high venom resistance of the mammal are more than enough to endure long enough for the animal to feel its belly before returning to the safety of the cave. Aside from the foraging trips that can take up to 4 to 6 hours every night, they also spend a lot of time grooming each other to reinforce social bonds and free themselves from parasites like fleas and ticks. During mating season between September and November, they will form pairs, focus their grooming on each other, and specially focusing on the grooming right before and right after copulating. They will mate several times each night for up to 3 weeks or until the pregnancy changes the hormonal balance of the female and makes her less receptive to the male advances. After a pregnancy of a month, the female will give birth to a single pup that is smaller than a human thumb. It will be dependent on the mother's milk for up to 4 months, until it finally starts flying and therefore becomes able to forage on its own. The first few times it will stay in close proximity to its parents to learn where to get food and how to access it, but after that they pups will start spending more and more time with other unrelated individuals around their same age. After 2 years of life they will reach sexual maturity and the most likely will pick a mate out of these early friendly interactions. We adventure further inside the cave. We start seeing large mats of fungi that grow feeding on the guano. These are the base of the internal food chain of the cave, supporting a wide arrangement of invertebrates that feed on them, like these small insects, the klimites. These are endemic to the cave system, inhabiting almost all the caves, congregating in the first 500 meters of the cave entrance, and are very peculiar among cockroaches for being eusocial, living in huge colonies that can host more than 20,000 individuals, with the queen as the only actively reproductive member. The klimites are perfectly adapted to survive in low-light conditions. With a terrible eyesight, they are barely even able to recognize the difference between light and darkness. Instead, they use their very long and sensitive antennae to navigate, feeling their surrounding, and recognize each other as well as their foraging routes and location of their nest by chemical signals that they can sense with both the antenna as well as their feet. The chemicals are produced by a gland in their rear end and can also serve as a predator deterrent, as it is very noxious and even a bit irritating. However, is nothing but a minor nuisance for the largest predators of the cave that can be several orders of magnitude heavier than these insects. If one of the multiple possible predators ever manages to break into the nest where the queen hides, unable to escape due to her enlarged abdomen full of eggs, all the workers will become a living shield for their mother, using their jaws to try to fight back. Generally with little results, since these are not specialized to deal damage and are not quite as strong as the ones of other eusocial insects like ants or termites, probably since their preferred food source is relatively soft, and the fact that they have evolved into their eusocial lifestyle relatively recently, and have no specialized soldier caste, like their non-cave dwelling distant relatives. The colonies can last for around 10 years. That is the life expectancy of a queen. After the queen dies, the workers will start to leave the nest. They will live the rest of their lives on their own. Unlike their long-lived mother, the average lifespan of a worker is of only 2 to 3 months. A few weeks after the queen dies and the workers leave, a new set of klimites will be hatched inside the empty nest. These are not workers, but the queen's last and only fertile offspring. Both males and females, winged and will fly sometimes inside the same cave, sometimes to other nearby ones, to find a mate and start a new colony, carrying on the genetic legacy of the deceased queen. We continue walking in the ever so darker and narrower corridors of the cave. After a while we find more insects. This is the giant Australian blind beetle, an animal that is only giant compared to its close relatives, the lesser and common Australian blind beetles, the largest only ever reaching around the size of a ping-pong ball. They are members of the leaf beetle family tree and are therefore distantly related to East African thorny beetles. They are mostly solitary, but have no problem congregating in areas where food is particularly abundant, and will also obviously gather for mating purposes. In order to find mates in this dark palace of rock, they use sound. When a female is ready to mate, she will use her wings and elytra to produce vibrations. If a male hears it, he will respond with a similar sound, and they will continue until they finally find each other. Just as the klimites, their favorite food is the brown cave fungi. They can consume up to a quarter of their body weight out of the brown mass every night. However, this is not their only food source. They have also been observed munching on decaying leaves or pieces of wood brought to the caves by water or wind, as well as the dung of some large herbivores that visit the cave from time to drink, escape from the heat of the muddy or lick mineral-rich rocks. The larvae, on the other hand, is strictly coprophagous, and have a diet composed only by guano. The adults reproduce year-round, and a female can lay a clutch of 20 pinhead-sized eggs every month, meaning up to 500 throughout her lifetime. The eggs are deposited directly in the guano. Hatching after 6 days, the newborns start eating right away, boring their way through the thick and pestilent substance that for them is nothing but delicious. They will grow fast, reaching 3 inches in length and almost 1 in grit by their 3rd week of life. After this they will start to pupate. The metamorphosis is a long process and a very vulnerable state. For almost 2 months they are unable to move or react. Not only are they at the mercy of predators, but a change in humidity in their surroundings could trigger a mold infection that would end their lives before reaching adulthood. Bat activity being particularly high could increase the level of guano and suffocate them, and a heavy rainfall could even cause the cave floor to flood, killing them in an instant. For the ones that managed to emerge as adults, life is not a walk in the park, but they have already finished the worst. At least we left the beetles behind and continue exploring. After a few more minutes we find a peculiar creature, the faceless mole badger. It is a very weird animal because, for starters, it is very rare for mammals to inhabit caves. Visit them. Of course, sleeping in them. Not so strange, but the interior ecosystem of caves generally offers too little resources for an animal with such a high metabolic rate as a mammal or bird to be able to survive in the confines of the cave throughout all their lives. This means, while many mammals are trogloxans, there are generally no true troglobite mammals, except for this one we are looking at. The mole badgers are a group of marsupials, descendants of the marsupial moles of the Anthropocene. These animals were already strange back then, with absolute zero vision. Not having the eyes connected to the brain, they had to find their prey based of cell and vibrations, and also for being mesothermic, meaning they need less food than other similar-sized mammals. These adaptations allowed the lineage that conducted to the mole badger to easily adapt to life in the cave system, and are now one of the most proficient predators of the caves, with a diet that includes klimites, beetles, millipedes and occasionally dead bats. The animal notices us approaching it and quickly runs away into a small crevice. Upon closer inspection we can see there are other two smaller ones there, juveniles too big to fit into their mother's pouch anymore, but still too young to completely survive on their own. Note here, this mother having two cubs at the same time is an oddity, as most of the time they only give birth to one at a time. Twin like these ones are as rare in this species as they are in humans. Once their youngling reach their 8 months of age, the mother will chase them away, otherwise the competition for the already scarce resources of the cave would be too much. These animals need large territories, generally more than 1,500 square meters, in order to have enough space to use as hunting grounds, and aside from mating and rearing their cubs they are very solitary creatures. We continue adventuring even further into the cave. At this point the corridors are getting dangerously narrow. Finally, after squeezing in between the rocks, we find the other main ecosystem of the cave, a large reservoir of water, located almost 1,200 meters deep and extending for several kilometers underground. This environment hosts several endemic species of invertebrates, but we got to be careful when searching for them. The terrain is very irregular and the waters can reach depths of more than 20 meters. Also, some of the organisms here are dangerous. While none exceeds the weight of a house cat, some are extremely venomous, like these ones for example. This is the Australian cave hydra, or giant cave hydra, an animal that despite being able to fit in the palm of your hand, is indeed, with a maximum length of 12 centimeters, a titan for its kind. Most species of hydra both in the age of N and currently alive do not reach 1/10 of that size. These few individuals range in size from 6 to 9 centimeters, and are all genetically indistinguishable from one another. Clones in a way. Like most species of this clade, they reproduce asexually by a process called budding. The daughters starts of growing as a ramification of the mother's body before splitting off and attaching themselves to the rock with a sticky secretion produced by their rear end. If we were to touch one, we would immediately feel a stinging pain. Then the affected area would feel like it's burning, and if left untreated the painful and irritating sensation could last from several minutes to a couple hours. The stinging cells on the animal tentacles are called nematocysts and are the same as the ones you could find in a jellyfish, basically tiny harpoons that shoot automatically upon contact. These, just like in their distant marine relatives, serve the dual function of a defense mechanism and their best hunting tool. They use them to kill and eat a variety of small invertebrates like water fleas and small freshwater shrimps, as well as the occasional small fish or tadpole. Once a tentacle makes contact, all the rest will wrap around the prey, injecting the venom from all angles and killing it instantly. One would expect an animal with such defenses to be basically immune to predation. However, there are a couple animals here that are able to feed on them. One of them is this fish, the white crawler. This specimen swims slowly in the dark waters, feeding on anything smaller than itself. They can grow up to maximum length of 35 centimeters, with an average of around half of that. There is no noticeable difference between males and females. Due to their extremely slow metabolism, they can take up to 20 years to reach their full size, and can live up to their 40s, if nothing kills them before. These fish have a very normal dentition for a modern galaxid, with small conical teeth in the dentary and maxillary bones, and no pharyngeal ones. The soft tissue of the mouth is covered in a dense mucus and the skin is also reinforced, being up to 3 mm thick. This is to help the animal deal with the stinging nematocist of some of its prey. The eyes are covered in skin, reduced and disconnected from the brain, making them undoubtedly vestigial. The fish senses its surroundings based of smell and tact, with its 6 whisker-like barbels that come out of its face helping it detect predators and prey by sensing vibrations in the water. The pectoral and pelvic fins present adaptations for terrestrial locomotion similar to the ones observed in the pelvic fins of mudskippers, and the anal fin is not present in order to reduce the drag when the animal needs to crawl, which it will often do for many purposes, including moving between small pools of water, escape predators and laying their eggs in small puddles to let them develop without or at least with less predators around. The exact amount of time the fish can stay inland is unknown, because it is able to breathe through its skin and throat tissue when out of the water, and its body adapted to work very slowly consumes less oxygen than other similar animals. It's likely the animal can survive outside of the water indefinitely as long as it stays moist. The largest recorded incursions of these animals out of the water are of around 2 to 3 hours, after what they went back and continue their lives with normality. In such a confined place, these animals have almost no natural predators or competitors, except for one. This is the snakeworm. This amphibian is the largest predator endemic to the caves, with some specimens reaching the meter in length and armed with hundreds of small conical teeth in their jaws. These animals can make a meal out of any of the other inhabitants of the cave. Their method of hunting is simple. They wait coiled at the bottom of the water, in between the rocks and mud, and wait until something swims nearby. They can remain in the exact same position for more than 3 weeks, just waiting for a small fish or shrimp to pass by. During this time their metabolism drops to an extreme degree, with their heartbeat reduced to around 8 beats per minute. The oxygen being passively absorbed through the skin from the water around the animal and brain activity dropping considerably. However, they are awake, and the moment something disturbs the water around them, the whisker-like sensory organs will put the predator back to a state of full alert, and once it is sure of the location of the prey, they will launch at it with unexpected speed, the jaws opening and closing back again in less time than what it takes a human to blink. If the impact doesn't kill the prey, the thin and narrow teeth will. After it, the animal will swallow it whole and search for a place to hide, to digest it in peace. Not too far away we see another creature. This also an amphibian, but this one has legs, external gills, and the overall body plan resembles the one of an axolotl or the larvae of any triton or salamander in general. While it might not look like it, this is also a snakeworm, just 2 weeks old, and it shows almost no traits of its adult form. The only detail giving it away is that there is a small pair of whiskers that it's just starting to grow. Once the animal reaches the 6 months of age, its limbs will start to reduce its size and will be completely reabsorbed by the body in a matter of weeks. The tail will develop in large spines to support a paddle-like caudal fin, and the gills will disappear. The adults can start mating right after finishing their metamorphosis. Mating has no associated rituals nor a specific season. Every 2 months females will produce a small amount of eggs, between 6 and 12. If she does not encounter a male during the following week, the eggs will get reabsorbed by the body. If she does encounters one, the eggs are laid. The male fertilizes them and then they part ways immediately. The female will purposely try to swim as far away as possible from the position where her offspring is developing, in order to prevent herself from eating the babies once they hatch. We see another small larval stage-tailed amphibian swimming nearby, but this one lacks the whiskers and has a shorter body. This is a western wandering newt, and it's also around 2 or 3 weeks old. This species, unlike its cousin the snakeworm, does not spend all their lives in the caves or underwater. Once this animal reaches the 4 months of age, it will start to reduce its gills and its limbs will become stronger, longer and more adapted for walking. They will even grow pseudo-claws derived from hardened skin at the tip of their fingers. The skin of the rest of their bodies will, after the end of the metamorphosis, they will crawl out of the caves and live the rest of their adult lives in the rainforest, feeding on insects. worms and small vertebrates they catch among the leaf litter. For the first 2 years they will not come back to the caves at all. It's during their 3rd year of life, when they reach sexual maturity, that they will all return to the same cave they were born in. The migration can fill the forest floor with hundreds of individuals. While this might look like a great opportunity for any predator to enjoy a banquet of newts, the venom glands in their necks make most animals want to stay away from them. With only a few specialists with poison resistance adaptations being able to exploit the seasonal abundance and exposure of a normally elusive prey, some birds are also smart enough to remove the venom glands of the animals after killing them. But that is not an instinctive behavior that all the species shares, and only a few individuals in very specific populations can actually perform the procedure well enough to make the meal completely safe. So all in all, the living mass covering the floor will arrive to the safety of the caves with few casualties. Once inside the cave, the males will experience a temporary change in their morphology, growing a short sail along their back, a trait they have retained from their distant Anthropocene ancestors. However, this species gives the ancestral display structure a twist, with a symbiotic bioluminescent bacteria that lives inside of their skin, and thanks to the darkness the caves offer, they become the biological equivalent of a neon sign. The ales will exhibit themselves, and females will pick the bigger and brighter ones to fertilize their eggs. After the process is done, they will leave the cave and disperse again. The sail on their backs will disappear in a matter of weeks, and the bacteria will be stored in a series of chambers at both sides of its spine until next year. The eggs take from 7 to 9 days to hatch, and the babies are born in a dark world, with little food but with less than 5% of the predator density they would face in a regular stream or lake. We climb back to the surface. The walk is tiring, but finally after a couple hours we feel in our eyes the stinging pain of the sunlight. It takes a few minutes for us to be able to see our surroundings again. Our expedition here is done, but still have one more stop in our journey across this world, 100 million years after the extinction of mankind.